Life-changing encounters with the other. DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, is a hallucinogenic drug that naturally occurs in many plant species. It can also be made in a laboratory. Plants that contain DMT have been used in religious ceremonies in some South American regions for centuries. DMT is the main active ingredient in ayahuasca, a concentrated liquid made by prolonged heating or boiling of the Banisteriopsis caapi vine, with the leaves of the Psychotria viridis shrub, although there can be a variety of other plants included in the liquid for different traditional purposes. Ayahuasca has been used for centuries by First Nations peoples from contemporary Peru, Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador for religious ritual and therapeutic purposes. As far as its psychoactive effects go, people have described feeling like they're traveling at warped speed through a tunnel of bright lights and shapes. Others describe having an out-of-body experience and feeling like they've changed into something else. There are also some who report visiting other worlds and communicating with alien-like beings. This story is by Mind Explorer and comes from Erowid.org, a site dedicated to drug harm reduction and trip experiences. This story is part of a two-part series. Stay tuned for our upcoming videos. If you want to explore some of these stories yourself, we will have the websites linked in the description below. Please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us to grow and to share these real-life trippy experiences with more people. Male. Body weight 135 pounds. Dose: liquid ayahuasca. Part 1 of 2. I decided to fast for 30 hours before participating in the ceremony. I knew that vomiting was inevitable, and I had been told that fasting would give me a stronger experience. I had pretty bad altitude sickness because I had just arrived in Cusco, elevation 3,326 meters, so it wasn't hard to fast. At sunset, we took an old-school Volkswagen Beetle up to the top of one of the hills surrounding Cusco. We entered a fairly spacious hut. 3 bed mats with plenty of blankets were lined up in front of an altar. I remember having a conversation with the curanderismo while he was preparing for the long night ahead. I distinctly remember him saying, "Ayahuasca no es una droga. Ayahuasca es la medicina." That resounded in me. He began the ceremony by lighting a candle inside of a large frame with holes running along the sides. This gave the room an eerie glow as the candle flickered and projected shadows along the walls. He then proceeded to fill his mouth with coca leaves, tucking them under his lip as he chanted a ritual song. Tobacco and coca are sacred to the curanderismos, for they allow contact with the spirits. He then pulled out an empty plastic water bottle filled with some dark fluid, the ayahuasca. He blessed the ayahuasca with a prayer, then blew over the top of the bottle before pouring the liquid into small ceramic glasses. He handed each of us the drink, then gave us individual blessings by blowing tobacco smoke all over us. He told me to drink it all at once. It tasted like some strong, exotic, bitter wine, but it wasn't nearly as disgusting as I had expected. I was pleased by this. The purge happened after about 20 minutes. It didn't last long. After I was certain that all the ayahuasca had left me, I got comfortable and I laid down. There were some windows on the thatched roof, which allowed me to see the night sky. When I closed my eyes, I began to see geometrical patterns, fractals, actually, all across my visual field. Then I felt a presence, as if I was surrounded by dozens of people. They were there to comfort me, to calm me down, and I began to feel wonderful. I heard, or possibly felt, a woman assure me that everything was going to be okay, and she beckoned me to come with her into the spirit world. She felt very motherly, which evokes images of Mother Earth, or Pachamama, as they say in Quechua. Then a red light appeared, which jolted me up. The curanderismo was staring straight at me, and then he asked me, "You okay?" He would ask me that question throughout the entire night. It's actually a joke I still have with one of my friends, who was there with me. Even when I was uncomfortably hallucinating, I would still respond, "Si." It almost amused me, because I would always have to think for a few seconds, am I okay? I always was, and I'm very glad he would ask. There were some difficult situations that he helped me through later in the night. Ayahuasca should never be used without a shaman. The ayahuasquero played sacred songs, ancient songs, beautiful in their own right, but not comparable to anything I had ever heard before, except for maybe the chanting of Hasidic rabbis. He used drums and flutes and vocal intonations to guide our experiences. The shaman uses these auditory signals purposefully to evoke visual imagery within the participants. The songs, or Icarus, convey information, stories about their ancestors. My visions would consist of jungles and jaguars, and hunts and feasts and people, and it reminded me of the Torah, just their jungle version of it. For hours, he was consistently able to provoke this imagery. I believe this may represent a novel form of communication that has yet to be studied by modern science. It's worthy of investigation. During the first 3 to 4 hours, I came into direct contact with multiple hyperdimensional entities, also known as spirits or angels. However, there were many different types of entities I encountered, and the differences must be addressed in order to understand the phenomenon. Some spirits had human qualities, which ranged from ordinary to powerful shamans. I remember one entity had a very strong presence. The ayahuasquero became silent, and the candle began flickering furiously when the spirit entered the room. Many of the spirits would enter my body, and I could feel them. I felt like most of them were healing me, although some would speak to me in exotic languages that I couldn't understand. Some spirits were not human at all, and if I were to guess, I would say they were plant spirits. I could just tell. Some spirits seemed like they were responsible for our existence, and if they played a role in the unfolding of the present moment. At first, my reaction to these spirits was that this was ridiculous, and they must just be hallucinations. But after about an hour of observing them and scrutinizing them, I came to the rational, semi-empirical conclusion that they were real. They passed all of my cognitive tests for what spirits would actually look like if they were real. By that I mean they were far stranger than anything I could have ever imagined to be real. However, I must stress that there are no words adequate in describing them, and most of them were felt, not necessarily seen, in the traditional sense at least. It's just one of those things that may sound ludicrous to somebody reading this, but makes perfect sense if you actually experience it. At some point, I realized that my experience was over. It went by too quickly. I hadn't seen my spirit animal. I hadn't had an out-of-body experience. I hadn't felt the presence of God. I had just interacted with these spirits that showed me random shit. That was it. But what insights had I gained? It was a cool experience and all, but not the most profound experience of my life. I was a little disappointed. However, the curanderismo noticed this. He laughed and said I could always just drink more. He said I would fully enter the spirit world if I drank more. I was a little nervous about that prospect, and went into the bathroom to fully think it over. In the end, I realized that I might not have the opportunity to do this again. That's it for today's video, guys. Don't forget to stay tuned to see what happens next in life-changing encounters with the other. If you enjoyed this story, or if you have any requests for other crazy drug experiences, please leave a comment below and subscribe to our channel. Thanks again for sticking around till the end. See you in the next video. Stay trippy.